I hope that you've all enjoyed these videos. We had a lot of fun looking for them. We obviously sorted through a lot more than we're showing. And I would encourage you to go to YouTube, any issue, and see all of the wonderful things that people are doing and putting out there. If I could ask the chefs to join me on stage, Marcus, Jose, and Michael. We, at the James Beard Foundation, obviously, chefs are our focus, our peeps, we like to say, as Susan noted, chefs of a certain category of restaurant, but also increasingly chefs. Just come right up and take a seat with me, maybe in that order. So we'll do Jose, Michael. Oh, I'll sit here. I'll follow my own chart. And chefs are increasingly, well, they're why we are. It's due to their support and due to the incredible work that they do. And so it seemed like we couldn't end a day, a conference of the Beard Foundation without talking to them about what some of the issues that we've heard other experts from other fields discuss. As Karen mentioned this morning, we were very conscious in bringing people not necessarily associated with the food world to this food world audience, but also to hear their reactions and talk about the pressures that they face in a day-to-day in their day-to-day lives, running very successful businesses at a very high level, under a lot of pressures, both to produce wonderful food, but also to run profitable businesses, to mentor and train staff, to situate themselves in their respective communities, and then to expand and take advantage of some of the economies that we've heard, and also to take those platforms we talked about earlier that they have now due to their incredible and hard to believe, but wonderful status as leaders in this movement of food that so many people are now interested in. So it's a real pleasure to be sitting here with an incredible team. It's nice to see you not in the kitchen and not in your whites, but up on stage in this beautiful auditorium at Hearst. To my left, Marcus Samuelsson. He's a James Beard Award-winning chef, but more than that, he's a huge, he's become a huge food personality because of the mission, the passion that he's brought, and the personal mission he has brought to restaurants. His restaurant, Red Rooster in Harlem, has really become a model, I think, of the way a single enterprise, actually a person with an amazing vision, can change an entire neighborhood. The morale, not just of people's attitudes about it, but the people in the place, and we'll hear a little bit about that. Michael Anthony from Gramercy Tavern, one of everyone's favorite restaurants. If you're really in the know in New York and someone asks you where your favorite place to eat, it's always Gramercy Tavern. Sometimes it's at the bar. It depends. If someone's parents are in town, it's in the dining room. Although either place is an incredible experience. And Michael Anthony, obviously, his background has been passionate about sourcing ingredients and speaking so eloquently about the importance of making the right choices in running a restaurant, whether it's food or staff or just instilling people with a personal passion, and we'll hear about that later. And Quatrano, from the James Beard Award winner from the restaurant Bacchanalia in Atlanta, who's also doing the food tonight with Michelle Nichon for the Leadership Awards Gala. She's a trustee of the Beard Foundation. We have several chef trustee spots, and we're grateful to have you join us. And José Andrés, our most recent Outstanding Chef Award winner, from DC, but now also LA and all of Spain, an incredible chef and really international food celebrity. So thank you for joining me. Let's have a round of applause just for them being here to start. And I really just want to ask, like, what do you think about all of this? I mean, very generally and very quickly, we only have about 30 minutes to have this conversation. You've all been doing what you're doing for a very long time, and something has changed. I mean, we sense it here. People have talked about it today. There's been some sort of tipping point of interest, not just at the food at your level, but in food in general. And let's just go across and, what's your reaction, your personal experience with that? Marcus? Oh, sorry, I need to grab that.
Well, I think for me, as chefs, we're on a journey. And when I started cooking, it was really, you go to France and you work in a 3-star Michelin restaurant and you build from there. But I think for me, the game changer was 9/11. And when something like that happens, you don't really know how it's going to affect you. But it affected the city and us in so many different ways. But the recession that came out of that, the search for local, the search for something familiar. And as a chef, okay, what does that mean to me? And then constantly start asking myself, if I look at New York City with X amount of thousands of restaurants, and I live in Harlem. How come there's not a restaurant in Harlem? What can I do to that, to change that? Well, I decided first with moving from Midtown, up physically moving, and I felt for the first 2 years, 3 years, I didn't have the license to open the restaurant. I need to understand what was the great corners, what was the bodegas like, what was Seatown like, what's the aspirations. And you know, for a chef to go into Seatown and buy something, it's 2007, 2008, it's clear, became very clear to me that America is a first world country with third world baby. And when it comes to if you want to look at that reality, you know, I encourage everyone to go to a Harlem in their city, because there's a Harlem in every city. And then rather than be pissed off about that, but be inspired and challenged by that, saying, okay, let's build something that is connected to the farmers market that were there. Because there were signs of great stuff. You know, the farmers market in Harlem is 4 months a year. Now we've got it to 7 months a year. And the challenge is really about bringing normalcy, normal behavior. The same behavior you would have in Midtown or on Union Square. 5, 6, 7 years from now, you will have the same behavior in Harlem. And what I mean with that is you come uptown, you eat, you go to the store like next door, you buy from the farmer's market, and you maybe go to the shop next door and buy something. You know, you have normal behavior. But we didn't start at a normal point of view. We started at abnormal, so we had to go really, really hard. And same time understanding Twitter, Facebook, the whole online experience. And as a chef, understanding, well, it's not the enemy, it's actually the advantage. And figure out how to position yourself in that and activate yourself and inspire within that.
Fantastic. Our themes of money and media coming together in part of the solution, and we'll get back to that. Michael, you've been at this for a while, actually in a neighborhood that was also rejuvenated in many ways by a market and a restaurant. Your reaction to these issues and how you negotiate them in your day-to-day existence?
Well, I'll try to pick up where Marcus left off. In looking at this from a career perspective, my career followed a similar path, and trying to synthesize some of my experiences of living and working in other food cultures, there was a sense of both romanticism and a sense of, hey, why isn't there a normalcy in the way we approach food and our cooking? Joining the team at Gramercy Tavern, there was also the challenge of entering in a restaurant that may have been one of the most well understood restaurants in the history of our industry. At the same time, understanding the foundation that Danny Meyer laid in creating each one of his businesses, and especially Gramercy Tavern, very strategically locating it in a neighborhood that had had already started to blossom, but where he was able to, through a deep commitment to the community, really create roots. We all know that restaurant's history is interwoven with that of the evolution of the green market. And for me as a chef, part of the story is letting that evolve and making it evolve. So I think there was, you were talking about babies. I mean, for personally speaking, I had to think about this in terms of not just being a professional chef, but as I became a father, how do I incorporate these sensibilities into the way we cook? Stylistically, we think about this every day in terms of while we're professional restaurant chefs, I think we're stronger when we have the courage to cook the way we do at home. The conception of these dishes take inspiration from not just a sense of accessibility, but a sense of health and well-being and vibrancy. So it is interwoven in the story of Gramercy Tavern. It gives us a great opportunity from a platform like that to talk to a mainstream audience. And this is an opportunity that I don't think we should miss. So it's a privilege to be working there.
Anne hosted our salon in Atlanta at her beautiful restaurant, where we had some interesting conversations we'll come back to. But your first reactions to all of this?
Is this on? Yes. When I started cooking, it was in the 80s. I'm the oldest, so I'm the oldest. And it almost, I cooked in New York, I cooked in San Francisco. It almost was more prestigious to have ingredients that you had to fly in that were out of season. Mm-hmm. Asparagus in the winter, strawberries in the winter, anything you could find from another country was maybe a little more prized and sought after. I went from there and I cooked in San Francisco with at Zuni with Judy Rogers, and that was when everything was local. And I came back to New York and it still wasn't local. We were still, I mean, we had a small farmers market. Union Square was happening in the 80s, but it wasn't huge. And we sought after local ingredients as much as we could. And I've seen, I think, over the 20-something, 30-something years, that when I went to Atlanta, we had no farmers. I had one person growing lettuce for me when we opened, which was 20 years ago. And now we get all of our produce locally, and we have farmers, and we grow our own. And I just think it's been a great and pretty rapid transition, I think, from where we were 20-something years ago and to now. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jose, you're someone with two perspectives. I mean, you obviously are from Spain with a different European perspective.
Well, a lot of ideas. What I would like to be talking more often than not is about pragmatism. Mm-hmm. It's amazing to see what's happening over the last few years, and about how the food community is really taking a leadership and began talking about food in a more meaningful way. So I want to really thank you, Susan, and to you, Michelle, for really taking this new role of the James Beard Foundation and not only giving awards to the chefs that cook, but putting the awards on the side and really making our profession more meaningful to the future of America and the world. So I want to see pragmatism because I think sometimes we are becoming a little bit radical. When someone comes to me and talks to me about local, I don't go with the local flag. And everyone knows I love products from around the world. So local means that I cannot have a Spanish restaurant with Iberico ham and manchego. And the same people that are giving me the speech about local, they have the biggest French champagne list in America. When I mean pragmatism is that, yes, but we should be having a conversation always that is not radical. If we are talking about obesity, I think it's very unfair just only to blame the fast food industry for obesity in America, because there are many, many, many issues that create obesity in America. Actually, I serve very good food, but if you eat too much of my food, you're going to be obese too. You can have the most beautiful organic peach in the history of mankind. If you eat too much of those peaches, you're going to be obese too. So pragmatism, again, if we're talking about the environment, you know what? A restaurant like mine sometimes gets 12, 14, 15 deliveries a day. Sometimes I go and I watch how a fast food restaurant receive his food, and they get one shipment sometimes a week. If we are talking about the environment, I cannot be criticizing the others without first being very, 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 very pragmatic with myself. I am part of the problem because I cannot be looking at them and just putting them on the health side, when actually I'm receiving between 15 and 20 shipments a day from local. So who is contaminating more, the fast food industry or restaurants like mine? So again, I love that we are having these conversations, because in order to really do breakthroughs and all agreeing, first we're going to have to be very critics with our ways in order to understand what the others do.
Thank you for that. So is there, Marcus, when obviously your restaurant is located in a community, you said you spent some time thinking about the area. Are there other issues? Is that your primary focus? Is that what motivates people in your day besides the wonderful food that you serve? Do you use that in your business model?
Well, I think that, first of all, I think it goes back to also giving back. You know, I've been lucky enough to be able to work wherever I wanted and had this incredible journey in food. But, you know, you look at a community like Harlem, it's more similar to Africa for me. You know, in Africa, you have about 60% unemployment, very little violence for 60% unemployment. In America, we argue whether we have 9% or 10% unemployment. Harlem has 50% unemployment. So that for me, it's already, and yet restaurants, we can't go to the bank and get loans, so we have to figure it out a different way. And well, I felt like, you know what, I can actually do something about that. We can hire about 100 people. 70 from them are from Harlem. We can, you know, my florist is from there, the person who sweeps our window, you know, a lot, not just the people that go there, but there's so many other sub-jobs that we're creating there. And also the sense of being, you know. And it's also, I believe, not just for people in Harlem, but I believe for New York City, we're better than that. You know, what is happening in Brooklyn for me is very inspirational. Whether it's Roberta's or whether it's just Smorgasburg or whatever it is that Brooklyn's been doing, they've been creating this sort of, we could go to Manhattan, but we can also have many people from Manhattan go to Brooklyn, which they're now obviously doing in tons, right? So it changed the footprint of dining. Brooklyn changed conceptually the footprint of dining. And that's inspired me to say, well, Brooklyn's 40 minutes away, Harlem is 8 minutes away on the 2 or the 3. Can we surpass race? Can we surpass financial difficulties? I think, yeah, 2012, we should be able to have that conversation.
So you think people from Harlem will be eating in your restaurant in 2012? Or?
No, I mean, I think that was really the goal. Like, can we? These were the questions that I not only asked of myself, but also of New York City, because it wouldn't work if New York wouldn't come. And now we have the numbers to prove it. We have 500 requests. We seat 500 people every day. We have 1,500 requests every day. So, and we segmented it that a third of them are the visitor, Kansas, Japan, Sweden. Another third is New Yorker. And the last third is the ambassadors, it's the people, the Harlemites. So I think this is very inspirational in many ways. We created jobs in an environment where it's very difficult. We didn't ask for government loan, and we give a sense of self. So this encouraged us to do more things. And I think that's what small businesses within food can do. Because it's a low entry level, right? And we can create a diverse working environment. And I think it's the right thing to do with someone that's a lot of experience. And if I'm going to be on TV, and the goal is not just to say hi to people, the goal for myself, ask myself, is what am I going to do with this? I'm going to convert it to something that I'm extremely passionate about, and commit to something that's positive.
And I'd like to thank you, Marcus. I'd like to go back to something that we talked about when we were with you around the table at Bacchanalia with our salon. And this was the question of the price of food. And there are two things that were said at that salon that really helped us shape the conversation we've been having today and we'll have tomorrow, and also just I can't get out of my head. And one of them was the realization that there's a lot of talk, and today upstairs, some people brought up the question of what are the ratios or what are the inputs that we're talking about when we're talking about what food ought to cost. And we'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow. And the idea that came to us around your table was, ironically, even though all of you are at restaurants that probably fall more towards the latter scale of our survey of chefs in the 25, let's say over $100 a person range, that in fact in restaurants we see the real cost of food in some ways, because we're buying from the highest quality purveyors, we're paying staff that are all living and often giving them health care, I imagine. We are doing all the sorts of things that then add up to this small profit margin at the top, but actually if you want to eat food at a certain level, it's that. And you said something to me, to all of us, that was very interesting, that was you never really thought about the price of food until you became a chef, and that's all you think about. I just wonder if you could comment about those two things, that the constant focus on the price and cost of food at this really high level, and perhaps what that has to inform all these other conversations we're having about food at every level.
Yeah, my mother was not a really great homemaker, so she wasn't a coupon clipper or anything like that. So I never really thought about it. Even when I lived in Manhattan and didn't have money, we still saved enough to go out to a nice dinner once a month. That was our goal, and we accomplished that and didn't really think about that expenditure. But when it comes to the restaurant, of course, cost is important to us. It has to be. We want to pay our chefs well. We want to put the best product on the place, and we want to stay in business, which is really the hardest part of that whole the equation. I was recently at a small, I guess you would call him he had a community garden. We were at a board meeting for George Organics, and he said, my goal is to make enough money to pay my staff. And I said, so is mine. I mean, I don't think, I mean, and this is me, and I maybe am not the best business person, but really what my goal is to be able to afford to put the best product on the plate, but also to employ the 150 people in the manner that I think they should be employed, and to make sure that the quality of what we do is always, you know, as high as possible, and cost enters into that equation a lot. And that's the hard part, I think, really for us. It's like $4.25 for a local chicken that I really like to serve, and I think, well, how can you make that work, really? Or the option between a cow, which we can get 38% yield from, or a pig, which we can get 58% yield from, and the cost per pound is similar. So our menus are heavy with pork. So yeah, I mean, the products are good, they're natural and they're organic, but there's always, we're always looking at that, at the cost and the waste, of course, and you know, the least waste, the better, no matter how much you spend for it.
Mm-hmm. Michael, you want to comment on a similar issue, how you negotiate the?
Well, I would say that, again, we're in a privileged position, specifically at Gramercy Tavern, because of the restaurant was ahead of its time in terms of not just the experience it affords guests with the casual front room and the fine dining back room, and I would say that everyone sitting here has, to some degree, throughout several storefronts, the ability to generate several outlets for these products. So in our case, there's a certain sense of, it is relatively easy that it happens under one roof at Gramercy Tavern, and there's a sense of, you know, celebration and learning when it comes to the craftsmanship that we're teaching young cooks that come to the restaurant. So there's an ability to, you know, to tap into this story of how do we utilize to, you know, our greatest ability every ounce of product that we buy. So there is a certain sense in any restaurant, and there has always been a certain sense of thrift and creativity that makes for a successful restaurant. I think in celebrating that story, it's a great one because it tells the evolution of our industry, and it also marks, I think, what young cooks are most excited about. We're here in the States, we're coming back to this full circle of really being at the beginning of understanding that there might be something unique that's happening in this country that could be named collectively American cooking. That is a little grandiose, but I would say that these gentlemen and have done a lot to encourage that. But you know, I find it fascinating that that you don't hear what is it that we're doing again? What is American cooking? Now it's firmly established, and there's a chance to run with it. So cost is always a factor, but there's a chance, you know, for the young cooks in this industry to, you know, to have outlets to celebrate, really connecting with the fine details of those costs.
Excellent. I think in the essence of time and pragmatism, which Jose has charged us with, I want to ask you each a very quick answer question. And one is, if you were given the opportunity, say, and all of the important people were in this room, which they are, what is the one message as a chef from your lifetime in food? I mean, all of you have such an intimate knowledge of food. I'm envious of it, and I know all of the foodies here are envious of that knowledge, that embodied knowledge. What do you think they need that they don't get, in your opinion, in America today, people don't get that you'd like them to understand about food? Jose?
Wow. I'm going to add 10 seconds. I'm not so worried about the cost of the product. The people that come to restaurants like mine, usually they can afford it. I'm almost more worried in the other areas, is why certain companies they get advantage from subsidies that they receive directly by the government. We know next year the Farm Bill is going to be negotiated, and that those subsidies help certain companies to have a product that actually they can serve a burger a lot cheaper than mine. I want them to serve a burger as cheap as they can. I want to have the same option. Mm-hmm. So one day when Susan will show us numbers again, chefs like us, we will be opening restaurants under $20 check average of lower. So going back to the question, I believe as a chef, I'm very happy to be feeding the few. I'm really honored to be feeding the few and powerful and the rich that can come to restaurants like ours. But if in 50, 75 years from now I want to look back and to see in what world are we living in, I do believe that not only the chefs, but the restaurant, the food people of America, we do have that true mission. If we really want to take care of our children, we have a true mission of not how are we feeding the 1%, but how are we feeding the other 99%. Because if we began thinking about how to feed the world, many of the issues we're going through, they will really be meaningful. Because when we talk about a farmer's market, my wife only gives me $200, and she says, no one more dollar. A farmer market is really expensive. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of people in Washington, D.C., unfortunately, cannot afford it. So here we are in this situation where the rich farmers of the world are feeding the poor in the third world, and the poor farmers of America are feeding the rich in our neighborhoods. And so I'm only asking, what did we do to create this inequality? And what are we gonna do to change it? So long story short, chefs, we are gonna have to be, as we are, and every day more, we're gonna have to prepare ourselves, we're gonna have to be taking MBAs, to being able to talk the talk, to being able to talk against the lobby's numbers. We're gonna have to be preparing ourselves in ways that maybe we've not been prepared until recently, but that hopefully I see in moments like this, that as much as I'm giving my opinion, I believe I'm going through a learning process of how the world runs through the power of food. And by really learning about it is when, in the next 5, 10, 15 years, we can be really true and meaningful. So when the next farm bill shows up, chefs will be at the table, helping somehow to shape the future of America and the world through food.
Great.
I think that it's our responsibility, maybe not mine personally, because I really like talking to people, but but maybe all of your responsibility. But we need to teach. I'm really bad at this. But we need to teach people. I think it's our responsibility to teach people and make them excited about cooking. I think that's the problem in America, that too many people don't know how to cook. They're scared to cook. My friends will say, oh, I don't know how to make this. It's like quinoa, like boil it in water, you know what I mean? But I think that we need to take an active interest in that, and I think that you can feed people very inexpensively. They can feed families very inexpensively with a protein, a bean or a legume, and some fresh vegetables, and I think that's really where we have a responsibility that maybe we could all embrace, just not me.
You can embrace by doing. You don't have to say.
I'm getting coached.
Well, I'll just add to that. I think that there are an incredible number of organizations that, if we're willing to dedicate our time and we're organized enough to do that so that we maintain the quality in our restaurants, that we can focus on issues that are important to us. And that's not an easy thing. It's challenging making all those things happen, but we this year took this step forward to participate in an organization here in the city called Wellness in the Schools, which gave us a chance to build on our relationship with one particular elementary school. We had to make a decision to focus our effort and energy on a school that was within a geographic location that we could reach the kids and interact with them on a regular basis, carving out time. And while that excludes some schools that certainly need our help, we've dedicated ourselves to building a relationship, and we're trying to use as many resources as we can find. That's where we need help, finding those resources and then tapping into the incredible power of that a chef has, this power of seeing someone from TV or seeing someone in a white coat has a profound effect on the way people see food. So we also need help to take those steps in the right direction.
I think one of the most important issues is the next level of farmers market, the affordable farmers market. We're very privileged to talk about farmers market now, but it's still just only a minority of the people, and we all touch on that in different ways, but can afford it. So whoever can come up with affordable farmers market and start looking at urban America as opportunities. I was speaking at the Davos conference, at the World Economic Forum conference this February, and everyone is talking about Brazil, China, and India. And I think, like, as emerging market in terms of anything, right? I think the emerging markets are inner cities of America, and they're much more easier for us culture-wise to understand and penetrate through because they're right here around the corner. And if I'm going to open a store, another Rooster in Moscow versus I'm going to open in the Bronx, I open in the Bronx. And because I can speak the same language and it's easier and all those things. So I think that, I just think that we forget sometimes that, and that's the next level of diversity. And the other thing, on a complete personal thing that I think about a lot, I'm asking myself, what have you done? What have you not done enough? And I'm not cooked enough for people in prisons, for example. I think about the people that you certainly don't see, like people that maybe have different types of diseases. And I compare it to my chef friends in Sweden. I mean, Jose and I have this amazing opportunity because we can compare it with other cultures. And when I look at my chef friends and when my chefs are asking me in Sweden, hey Marcus, let's go over to that hospital and do something. Because they don't talk about school food in Sweden, because that school food now is whether it should be local or organic or not, right? They're already surpassed what we're dealing with right now. But they are having conversations, cooking for the blinds, cooking for disabled, cooking in prisons. I can't speak for them, but I haven't entered that yet. And that here, I think is very important as well.
Amazing. Well, I thank you all. It's no wonder that you are as successful as you are and that you have been able to take the platforms that you've been given and done some great things. I think you show some amazing leadership and are an inspiration for a lot of people. And I want to give you our commitment at the Beard Foundation and with all these people that one of the things we know we keep hearing as we travel around is the need to help with the tools that you are being given, the platforms, Davos, television, even just in a school to help turn these really big and profound ideas you have into some real practical, meaningful work and to be able to inspire others to follow in your leadership roles. And I thank you for that. And I thank you for the panel. I wish we had more time, but let's have a round of applause. Thank you.